Hi, welcome to Deep In. My name doesn't matter. Let's dive in. I thought you'd like a better view today. It's kind of dreary and cloudy, and there's a lot of green grass behind me. I thought that would be apt considering today I wanted to talk to you about Patrick, St. Patrick, as we know him. He is the one that we have St. Patrick's Day, where we celebrate all these parades and everybody wears green, and you don't pinch each other, and you pinch each other if you don't wear green for some weird reason. Still don't really understand that. But anyway, he is a 16-year-old in Britain, is where his story starts for us. He's raised by a Christian family, born in 389. Raised by a Christian family, lives in Britain, but Romish Britain. So it's Britain that was kind of occupied by Rome for years. And then Rome, at this point in history, has abandoned the British Isles, and they have retreated. And so there are no legionnaires. There's no real concrete government. They're kind of fighting over who gets to be in charge. And at this time, the Irish people begin to raid the British Isles and take people as slaves. So Patrick gets caught in one of these raids when he's 16 years old and gets taken to Ireland, where he becomes a slave. And in Ireland, he is forced to be a shepherd. And this is wild. He's forced to be a shepherd. He's forced to go out into the fields. And as he's out in the fields, he begins to remember the things his parents had taught him. And by his own testimony in his biography, oddly called the Confessions as well, he talks about how he had strayed from God and was not faithful to the Lord and didn't care about what the priest had told him and didn't pay attention to anything that no call to devout life that the priest had called him to. And so he ends up bound in slavery and in a field by himself, shepherding pigs at times, shepherding sheep at times, shepherding dogs at times. And so he's this shepherd of pigs and swine primarily for 6 years. And in that 6-year period, he begins to turn to the Lord and ask the Lord and recall what he has been taught from his youth. And he begins to ask the Lord who he is. And so God reveals himself as Jesus, and he is spending all this time in the fields, becomes very close to the Lord, and he gets a vision one day while he's fasting. He's fasting and praying for freedom, and he gets this vision one day of a man telling him that there is a ship waiting for him, a voice telling him there's a ship waiting for him, and he runs away. He gets to this ship, and this ship, 200 miles, he gets away, and he gets to the ship, and he barters with the with the captain of that ship to take him with him. So he goes with this captain, and they sail off, and they land somewhere offshore. They're all fleeing, and they land somewhere. And as they're away, Patrick walks with them, and they wander in the wilderness, in the woods, in the forest for 28 days, and they're starving, they're hungry. And Patrick, after 28 days, gets frustrated and stands up, and he preaches this message and says, if you will but trust in the Lord and have faith in Jesus, if you have faith in God, he will provide. And immediately, according to Patrick, they come across pigs, a herd of swine, and they which were probably wild boar at the time. And so they kill and they eat their fill, and they laud the Lord of heaven, and they all become believers, according to Patrick. Now he eventually gets away, and he gets enslaved again for another 2-month period, but he gets away from that, and finally makes his way to France, where he joins a monastery, and he begins to grow in the Lord and study. And while he's there, he gets this vision of a man from Ireland asking him, the young boy, to come back. Would you please come back to us? And it's very similar to Paul's vision of the Macedonian call in Acts chapter 16, when Paul sees the Macedonian man saying, please come to us, please come to us. And so Patrick, in his zeal, says, I will go, but he recognizes that he is not prepared, so he goes to study at a monastery in Gaul for a few years, and then eventually makes his way to Ireland. And when he gets to Ireland, he becomes this incredible missionary for the faith. He starts over 200 monasteries. He baptizes over 100,000 people. He becomes the solid foundation by which the Irish people have Christianity. Now, this is a powerful example for us One, that this man in his solitude and in his slavery and in his condition that he couldn't do anything about, sought the Lord. And when he sought the Lord found him. And he begged for freedom, and God granted it. And then he surrendered his soul to the Lord. So let that be a lesson for us in this time of imposed exile where we are forced to retreat into ourselves, that there is a God who is present and listening and wants to know you and wants you to know him. And he will do it in a field by yourself. He will do it in a crowd. He will do it anywhere. He wants you to know him, and that is his goal, and he will use the means that you are in to reach you. Second, Patrick does not hold any ill will towards the Irish. He recognizes that slavery, his slavery, is a picture of every man's slavery. And so when he returns to Ireland, his great message is, I was once a slave, but now I'm free. You are all slaves and can be free from the bondage of sin in Jesus Christ. If you would trust in Jesus Christ, you can be free. The bondage of sin holds us down and it keeps us from life. But Patrick knew the message, and I do too, and you should as well. Jesus Christ sets us free from sin, and we are no longer held in its bondage, and we are made free to live in Christ and to live in wonder and glory in awe of God. And then third and finally, one of the lessons we can take from Patrick is that no one is beyond the grace and love of God. The lowly slave in Patrick, he preaches to kings in Ireland. He preaches to people who are noble royalty, and he teaches them the gospel. So, be like Patrick. Teach the gospel, love well, teach people to love Jesus. Have a great day. Don't forget to breathe and go get to work.